UFO spotted? A UFO hovering over Air Force One at LAX during President Joe Biden's fundraising trip to Los Angeles earlier this week has allegedly been caught on camera. Per the Daily Mail, the object was described as a white or silver sphere seen hovering near the president's jet.
According to the Daily Mail, eyewitnesses spotted an LAPD helicopter circling the, quote, stationary object. Joining us to discuss this exciting development is Harvard's esteemed physicist, Dr. Avi Loeb. Welcome, Dr. Loeb, back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure.
So what do you think we are seeing there on the camera? What could potentially explain this, and could it be an unidentified aerial flying object the way people have expected?
Yeah, the fundamental question is whether it's human-made or something from outside of this Earth. But I would assume that it must be human-made to start with, and then, of course, we need better data. We need to look at better images and not obtained from just people who happen to be at the right place at the right time, but with scientific instruments. So I reserve my judgment. I should say we have about 100,000 objects over the past month that we monitored with the Galileo Project Observatory at Harvard University. And we are applying very careful analysis using machine learning to figure out whether we are looking at natural objects like birds or human-made objects like drones, balloons, airplanes. And you would expect those human-made objects to be around the president's airplane. The question is whether we recognize it. I mean, our people know what it is. And if not, whether it's some adversarial country. I mean, we know about the Chinese spy balloon that was shut down almost a year ago.
Now, the object's been likened to Reaper drones used in the Middle East. I can imagine a world where the military is monitoring the skies around the president's Air Force One jet, but I can also imagine a world where extraterrestrial life is interested in figures like the President of the United States. There have been increased UFO sightings around nuclear facilities. So I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence as to which side I fall on. I haven't seen Reaper drones in use in person, but which way do you fall when you think about something like this? We assume that it is human man-made, but what do you make of the UFOs being sighted more around nuclear facilities and now potentially the president's Air Force One jet?
Well, I'm just like you. I'm not decided yet because obviously there are people within the military and the intelligence agencies that are talking about objects they cannot identify. And I was at the Washington National Cathedral with Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence. And I asked her, I said, you submitted reports to Congress about these unidentified anomalous phenomena. And you have a bachelor's degree in physics from the University of Chicago. What do you make of these objects? What's your gut feeling? And she said, I don't know. Now, one thing is clear. There are lots of objects in the sky, and most of them are likely to be balloons, drones, airplanes. So we really need to do a very thorough job to exclude the majority of the objects that have simple explanations. And that's what AARO, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, is attempting to do about past reports, hundreds of them. And I visited them a couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C. They are still of the opinion that only a few percent of the objects that they looked into as a result of reports from military or intelligence agencies, only a few percent are unidentified. The rest they can figure out. But, it's not so much about the rest. Even if 1 in 1,000 is of extraterrestrial origin, that would have a huge impact on humanity.
When we last checked in with you, Dr. Loeb, I believe you were at sea in your project to investigate debris from objects that may have crashed in the ocean that you think could possibly show an extraterrestrial origin or an off-world origin. Could you give us an update on how that project is going?
Right. So we went back in June for 2 weeks in search of materials from the first recognized interstellar meteor, an object the size of a watermelon that collided with Earth, and the fireball that it created as a result of its friction on air was spotted by US government satellites. And we knew the location. We went there with a ship and scooped the ocean floor for any magnetic particles that may have been melted off the surface of this object. And amazingly, we found 750 such droplets. That some of them are background, some came from other meteors, but we found a unique type of spherules, these droplets, that was never seen before in terms of its material composition. And I'm talking about 60 elements from the periodic table. We are now in the process of summarizing all the results. Initially, a few months ago, we released some preliminary results from studying just a tenth of all the spherules that we found, but by now we went through all of them. And we are now working on the paper that will include all the data. It was a lot of work, 6 month work worth of analysis at the laboratory of my colleague at Harvard, Stein Jacobson. He's a geochemist, has some of the best instruments in the world, mass spectrometers and imagers and so forth. And we also benefited from the X-ray fluorescence analyzer in the laboratory of Roald Tagel at the Bruker Corporation in Berlin. So we will summarize all these results, but the bottom line is we found near the meteor path a type of molten droplets that was never seen before, and that's probably of extrasolar origin because it doesn't match the composition of rocks on Earth, Mars, the Moon, asteroids, anything within the solar system. And the next expedition that we are starting to plan right now would be to find bigger pieces. Now we know where to go. And of course, if you find a bigger piece, you can tell the difference between a rock and a technological gadget, because a gadget may have buttons on it. And if we do find something like that, the question will be whether to press a button.
Are there any other ways you can determine whether something was created by intelligent life or is a material naturally occurring in another solar system?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to tell that is from a big piece of the object or coming close to an object that is still functional, like an unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So obviously, if you see an object maneuvering in ways that cannot be reproduced by our technological products, and you can tell that it's technological because it has screws and maybe even a label made on some exoplanet, it would be clear beyond any reasonable doubt that we're dealing with a piece of technology from another place outside the solar system. And then the question would be, what information is it seeking? What is its goal? And it may be purely technological with artificial intelligence, so we might use our own AI systems to figure out extraterrestrial AI systems. Another possibility is that we find space trash, an object that is not functional anymore. For example, this meteor that, if we find a piece of it at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, it will obviously not be functional because it exploded in the atmosphere. But you can still learn a lot about the object itself. And, the fundamental question is whether the government has already such information, because the government monitors the sky all the time. Astronomers look at small regions of the sky and focus on very distant sources of light. And if something flies overhead, astronomers disregard it. So it's really the Galileo project, the first time that there is a scientific study of the full sky at all times. But it's possible the government has its day job for national security purposes to do exactly that. So it's quite possible the government has some information. And we heard from David Grush when he testified in front of the House of Representatives that he believes there are programs for retrieval and reverse engineering of alien spacecraft. And I actually had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago for more than an hour. And I tried to get a better sense of what he knows about the government programs, but he says that he cannot really talk about it for legal reasons. So unfortunately, based on the publicly available information, I'm with you. I'm split. I'm not clear yet. I mean, it's really all about the evidence,
Yes.
and I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I so agree, and I wonder if you feel this way, and we'll let you go in a second, but just quickly, it can be frustrating. I mean, it's so interesting to hear people come forward and testify that they have sometimes direct knowledge or sometimes slightly indirect knowledge that they've talked to someone who has seen either evidence of remains of extraterrestrial life, and that the government has that, and it's like being hidden somewhere. And then my next question, okay, where's that facility? Well, let's go there, and we never get the actual, yes, it's here, or they'll say I'm being told I can't talk about this, and I want to, okay, well, who's telling you that? Let's haul that person before Congress. It starts to become very very frustrating from a genuine interest, right, and a perspective that this could very much be real, and I would totally believe that the government could have this information and try to cover it up. But at some point, someone needs to come forward with some actual verifiable facts about it. What's your sense of that?
Exactly. And also, it should get to the attention of scientists like myself, because my day job is to figure out what's outside the solar system. The government's day job is to figure out what's produced by adversarial countries. It's a very different job. And if they have information about my day job, I would like to know it and help them figure it out. And it's really the job of science, because anything about the universe should be shared by all humans. All the information we know about the Big Bang, the expansion of the universe, was never classified. And this is of the same category. We just need to figure out whether we have a neighbor. I should say that when I lean in the direction of skepticism, I suddenly have an event like the one happened a few days ago, when I had a group of people from Washington, D.C., in my home for a visit to discuss some other physics project. And one of them was a high-level official, former official in Lockheed Martin. And I just wanted to clear my understanding. And I asked him, well, there is this testimony about potentially corporations or outside entities that are outside government that have possession of materials of interest in terms of extraterrestrial spacecraft. And I expected him to say, no, that's complete nonsense. Let's move on to another topic. But instead, he said, it may not be wrong. And so, I hear both views. People tell me that they have heard, that they know something is going on, but they don't show the evidence. And at the same time, when I try to get more information about what's known, I never get very far. And so out of frustration, as a scientist, I realize the sky is not classified, the oceans are not classified, and so I'm trying to figure out the answer myself. But it would save me decades of my time. Life is short. I would like to know if the government has it already, because then I'll be glad to help them figure it out, and I will not have to waste decades of my time trying
Sure.
to do it if they already have it.
Dr. Avi Loeb, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.